Two crises tonight facing America. Neither is COVID, but we have news on that front as well. First, to the border. Talk of a surge, a record number of migrant encounters in July at our southern border, more than 200,000. Then U.S. soldiers sent back into Afghanistan to get our citizens out as the Taliban captures two more key cities and heads for the country's capital. The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. We start with a record, and not the good kind. The U.S. government keeps track of how many migrant encounters there are at the southern border each month, and that number's never been higher than it was last month, 212,000 plus. And here's another record, 1.3 million. That's how many migrant encounters have been documented this fiscal year, and there are still 2 months left. Important to note here, these are not all unique individuals to cross more than once. Still, we've never seen numbers like this. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas visited the border today and hit a number of familiar points from the administration, blaming the root causes in other Northern Triangle countries and also pointing the finger at the previous administration.
It is critical that intending migrants understand clearly that they will be turned back. Tragically, former President Trump slashed our international assistance to Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, slashed the resources that we were contributing to address the root causes of irregular migration.
Secretary Mayorkas also provided numbers comparing some of these stats to 2019. That's the last time the situation at the border was considered a humanitarian crisis. And these are unique individual contacts. So in pure numbers in 2019, there were almost 800,000 migrants encountered. Over the same period this year, that number, 845,000. That's more than the population of Austin, Texas. The numbers tell the story, and there are images that add perspective to the situation that's unfolding right now as well at overcrowded border facilities. That's where we start tonight with two strong voices familiar with the border. Joining me now, Town Hall reporter Julio Rosas. He posted those images you just saw. And also Brandon Judd, the head of the Union for the Border Patrol Agents. Brandon, it's great to get you on our calendar tonight. We've been trying for a long time to get that personal insight and perspective from the border that you bring. You saw the numbers there. You're on the front lines, 212,000 encounters. That's more than 7,000 a day. How are you doing this?
We're not doing well. If you look back and you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, when I started my career in the Border Patrol, we were dealing with numbers similar to this, but it was completely and totally different. We were dealing with the vast majority from Mexico that we were just returning over and over and over again. Now we're dealing with people that we don't return. When you look and you consider that we apprehended 19,000 unaccompanied children, these children were released into the United States. When you consider that we apprehended 83,000 family units, 83,000 people that were with family units. Those people, the vast majority, were released into the United States also. So we released into the United States in the month of July nearly 100,000 people. And then on top of that, we had another nearly 40,000 gotaways. So 140,000 people were added to our population in the month of July. And by the way, they violated our laws. They crossed the border illegally and got rewarded for their efforts.
Julio, the video you posted this week caught our attention. You've been covering this story a long time. What did you think when you saw those images, and what's different than what you've been seeing over the last few months?
Well, it's quite simple, and it's just the fact that images like that are completely avoidable because that's the whole reason why Title 42 was implemented back in March of last year. The whole point is to prevent that type of crowding during a pandemic because as you see in those images, some of those people aren't even wearing masks and there's no social distancing of any kind. So this administration has decided to selectively enforce Title 42, and that was one of the open border policies that they implemented when they first got into office. And so as a result, more people are going to come and they're going to overwhelm the Border Patrol facilities during this time, and you'd think that the summer heat would try to dissuade people from entering the country illegally, but that's not what we've seen, and the recent apprehension numbers that you guys were just talking about just prove that. I mean, we continually are breaking records on a consistent basis now, and there's just no sign of it letting up.
Brandon, Title 42 is still in place, as I understand. So explain to us how this works and what's changed from last year, because you could use Title 42 to say essentially no one gets in, period, except unaccompanied minors if you wanted to. Is that what's happening?
No, it's not. If you look at Title 42 under the Trump administration, everybody that crossed the border illegally were sent back to Mexico. They were immediately expelled. Under the Biden administration, they've given so many different carve-outs that Title 42, unless you're a single adult, is basically a joke. We're not expelling anybody unless they're single adults. So when when Secretary Mayorkas says, don't come, you're going to be returned, that's not true. That's not what's happening. The majority of the people are being released into the United States, or they're able to get away because they're overwhelming our resources and creating artificial gaps in our coverage, which allows them to cross our more dangerous products. Our children in the United States are being killed because of dangerous drugs, because of policies from this administration, and it's easy to solve. It can be stopped. It's just like a light switch. They just won't do it.
How do you do that? You say you just continue what happened under Title 42 and no one comes in, period, as a result of the pandemic?
That could be one of the things that you could do, but you could bring back remain in Mexico. You could also challenge the Flores decision. You could hold people in custody pending their deportation or asylum proceedings. We know that if they're held into custody, they're not going to pay criminal cartels thousands of dollars to be smuggled into the United States just to be deported later on down the road. So all we have to do is stop releasing people, stop the catch and release magnet that is what draws so many people to the United States. When you talk about the root causes, that is the root cause. Catch and release. If we reward people for violating our laws, they're going to continue to come.
Julio, take us back into some of these facilities that you've seen and you've covered. How many are typically in these facilities and how many are in there now? I know I saw, at least on one of your posts, there were pictures of a lot of people gathered under a bridge in Mission, Texas, I believe it was.
Right. So in the two stations, former acting commissioner Mark Morgan told me that their capacity in the Rio Grande Valley is around 600 people. And just last week, they were having to deal with 10,000 people and just those in their area of responsibility in just those two stations. And that's, of course, the whole sector. They're not even considering the rest of the areas. So that is a problem, and that's what Brandon was saying. Under President Trump, Title 42 applied to everybody because, again, the whole point is to prevent these large people congregating in these types of settings where they can give COVID to each other. And so, again, just the fact that, the DHS secretary can say all he wants to not tell people to come, but I've talked to some of the people that literally just crossed the Rio Grande, and I've asked them, did you ever hear the administration telling you to not come? And every single time they've said no, they didn't hear that. And so, obviously they could be lying about that, but clearly even if they did hear it, they just didn't pay attention to it. They just completely ignored it and still came anyway. So they know that this administration is a lot more welcoming and a lot more accepting to this types of migration patterns that we're seeing right now. But the problem is that it's a very dangerous journey. It empowers the cartels. And I mean, one thing that's not even been talked about is in the El Paso sector, in less than a week's time, there was 2 shootings from the Mexican side directed at Border Patrol agents. And a former DHS Secretary Chad Wolf said that was very unusual for that to happen. So this is just a multifaceted problem. And COVID's one aspect, the crowding is another, but there's just so many other different problems that is just harder to see. And because it's harder to see, it's a lot easier to ignore. Yeah, and that's why these pictures are so compelling, Brandon, because we don't really get to see it, certainly as much as your agents do. On that note, what is it that they find to be their biggest challenge, your agents at the border?
Well, we're all upset. All of us that put on a uniform and go out and patrol the border, we're all upset. If you look at the muster that happened today at 6 a.m. with Secretary Mayorkas, there was an agent that literally said, rate your ability to do your job. I mean, that's how upset the agents are. They're calling him out. They're saying that he's not doing his job, that he's not doing what needs to be done to protect the American public. And that's what's frustrating to Border Patrol agents like myself. We want to do the job to protect the American public. We go out there, we patrol the border because we know that it's very important that our families, that other people's families are protected. And when we're not allowed to do it because this administration is pandering to its base, to the open borders crowd, it becomes very frustrating. It becomes very difficult to get up before your shift, put that uniform on, and go out and do the best that you can. But thankfully, our agents continue to persevere even though they don't have the administration's support.
Hey, Brandon, before I let you go in particular, I'm curious. I always come back to this. Instead of kicking policies back and forth between presidents, isn't this ultimately up to Congress? I mean, we've been in this situation for decades now. Isn't it up to Congress to finally come up with some sort of an immigration plan that we can all either at least agree on or implement that makes sense?
Joe, that's a very good point. And yes, it is. It is Congress's responsibility. But that's one of the reasons why Congress is constantly rated so low amongst the American public. They just don't have confidence that this Congress can come together and work together to actually create laws that are going to support them.
It goes back generations. There's no question. I mean, in decades, we've been trying to figure this out, and still to no avail. Julio, I'll give you the last word here. From your sources down there, what are you hearing is next?
I mean, it's just more of the same, and you know, more of the same, unfortunately, right now is just more people are going to come. They will be bogged down by the people that willingly hand themselves over, and so the narcotics and the other types of people who don't want to be caught by Border Patrol then have an easier time of getting away, avoiding detection, let alone apprehension. And so it is just going to be more of the same. I mean, and you know, we'll see what August brings us, and you know, as we've seen recently, I mean, because the videos that we were showing was just taken this past week. Right. So it's just more people are going to come because they know that unless something changes on the national level with in terms of the administration's approach, they know that this is the golden hour to come into the country. Right.
Well, we're not seeing much from the border, as we mentioned, so it's great to have Town Hall reporter Julio Rosas and National Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd come along for our eyes and ears tonight. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Joe, it was good to be with you. Thank you.
Joining me now to get a closer look at how this crisis is impacting cities farther north from the border, NewsNation's Marky Martin. Marky, new video surfacing this week nearby from the Rio Grande Valley, a park that's now home to hundreds of migrants. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, starting off with that video, Joe, I want to pop that up for you first thing if we can. This is video taken out of Mission, Texas, the Rio Grande Valley. And take a look at this video. This was taken by a volunteer worker. This is Anzalduas Park. It's a beautiful park. Was there not too long ago for a border event with Attorney General Ken Paxton. It is now home to 650 migrants who have tested positive for COVID-19, Joe. And taking a look at this video, it is men, it is women, it is children who are sleeping outside on mats. And not to mention in this Texas summer heat, you know, we're nearing triple digits most days here. And doctors in that area saying, you know, they all have COVID, you know, forget COVID for a second, the other health issues that can come from crowding like this, lice, even chicken pox for some of those little ones. They call this kind of crowding a terrible idea, Joe.
All right, Marky Martin, live for us tonight in Dallas. Marky, thank you very much for the update. We appreciate it. Another big story today that's getting a lot of headlines. It's the crisis in Afghanistan. The Taliban taking hold of the country more and more. Now U.S. troops are heading back to help with an American evacuation. I'll speak with a congressman who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, Mark Green of Tennessee, about the disaster we're leaving behind. Don't forget to follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter. The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan is almost complete, and the Taliban has taken advantage, capturing more than a quarter of all provincial capitals basically in a week. The concern that Kabul will fall is growing now among top military officials, and the U.S. is now sending in roughly 3,000 troops to help evacuate the U.S. embassy there. Here's some of what Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said today.
These forces are being deployed to support the orderly and safe reduction of civilian personnel at the request of the State Department and to help facilitate an accelerated process of working through SIV applicants. This is a temporary mission with a narrow focus.
Joining me now to talk about this, someone who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, for that matter, Representative Mark Green of Tennessee. Congressman, let's start with this latest news on the evacuation. You've actually been in country. Can you imagine a worse scenario than what's unfolding right now? I mean, we all have sort of visions of Vietnam here in the fall of Saigon.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like, Joe. Thanks for having me on the show. You know, the images of Kandahar, I mean, the fact that Kandahar is such an economic hub for Afghanistan, second largest city, supposedly it too has now fallen, 12 provincial capitals, I mean, all in a matter of days, not weeks, days. It bodes very poorly for the country of Afghanistan in the wake of this horrific pullout by the Biden administration.
You know, the obvious follow-up to that, Congressman, is your personal connection to that war there in Afghanistan. You also served in Iraq, as we mentioned. 20 years later, at a cost of, I don't know, I've seen between $1 and $2 trillion, to see this crumble in, as you said, a matter of weeks, maybe months. What does that mean to you on a personal level, having served there?
Well, it's very heartbreaking, to be completely honest with you. I have friends who died there, really great Americans. And we brought stability. We prevented an attack on the homeland. We kept the Taliban out of power. And now with this ridiculous withdrawal, and I'm not against getting troops out of Afghanistan, I just think a withdrawal has to be conditions-based and not politically motivated and time-based, which is essentially what the Biden administration has done. And it is disheartening, terrifying, because they make bad decisions. Like, this is consistent with what Biden did when he was vice president in 2011 in Iraq. They withdrew and precipitously got out of the country, and the next thing you know, ISIS is all over the Levant and, you know, cutting people's heads off. Now we have the Taliban basically taking American tanks and equipment.
Wasn't this bound to happen no matter when we did it, Congressman? I mean, President Trump wanted all the troops back at Christmas of last year, as I recall, and he sort of negotiated the beginning of the end of this. It feels to me like I'm surprised that so many military experts didn't see this coming, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, I think our folks should have known better. You know, the strength of the Afghan army, the equipment that they had, the basic power of the Taliban. We misread this. I mean, they were talking about, you know, some of the senior leaders that I said, worst case, you know, a year. And this has really happened in days.
Right.
I mean, just 7 or 8 days ago, they didn't have any provincial capitals. Now they have 12. They're in 200 provinces plus. That's half of Afghanistan. So
it's inevitable, isn't it? They're going to take over, right?
I think at this point, we're looking at the complete fall of Afghanistan within weeks.
All right, let me play a clip for you, Congressman, from White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on the future of the Taliban, and we'll get your thoughts after.
There's no question that the Afghan National Defense Security Forces would be strengthened, as would the Afghan political leadership, if they were to have more success in fighting back. There's no question about that. We're not hiding from that in any way, shape, or form. The Taliban also has to make an assessment about what they want their role to be in the international community.
So do we have to consider the idea of the Taliban having a role at the international table, Congressman? And I guess the other follow-up is, do you see some sort of an agreement between the Afghan government and the Taliban? Because it doesn't seem like the Afghan government has much leverage right now.
No, they don't have any leverage, particularly with the fall of Kandahar. I mean, they're in a bad position. There's no doubt about it. The idea that the Taliban, who UNICEF just recently reported that in the span of 72 hours, brutally murdered 27 children in this attempt to take back the country. These are sadistic people who've twisted Islam in a way that is, but what would we expect? I mean, this is an administration that wants to do a deal with Iran. And Iran is a totalitarian regime that's bent on dominating the world. It's written into their constitution, and they want a nuclear weapon. And this administration wants to do a deal with them. So sure, I would expect that Jen Psaki and President Biden and the whole administration wants to do a deal with the Taliban. They're all ready for that, I'm sure.
Well, we'll see. This isn't going away, as you well know, Congressman. And in fact, we'll have you back. I'd love to talk more about another mission you were part of, actually to capture Saddam Hussein and actually interrogated him for 6 hours. So we'll get your comments on that. How's that for a tease? We'll catch you next time, huh?
That sounds great. Let's do it.
Congressman Mark Green, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
As the Taliban continues to expand its control, Afghan leaders are pleading with the White House to do more to stop the advances. NewsNation's Allison Harris is live in Washington with more from her exclusive and emotional interview with the Afghan ambassador to the U.S. So the question, Allison, among others, is Afghanistan interested, do you think, in negotiating a peace deal with the Taliban?
You know, she said yesterday the Taliban is not a political party, and that is different than what you just shared from Jen Psaki at the White House. It's strange to talk about hope right now in the context of everything that's happened in the past week and today, as you were just talking about. But in my interview with the ambassador just yesterday, things have drastically changed since then. She kept turning back to hope. She has hope that the U.S. will intervene with air support. The U.S., that's probably not going to happen, but she says she can't even talk about Kabul possibly falling because that would shatter her hope. She's talking about how desperate the situation is. It's hard to have hope with the news today that the Taliban has captured the third largest city and now the second largest city as of this afternoon, isolating the capital of Kabul. The ambassador called for more U.S. close air support to fight the Taliban, saying that that would be the game changer, telling us that right now U.S. air support is extremely limited. The president and U.S. officials say the Afghan forces, they have the weaponry, they have the numbers that they need to fight, but the White House has been saying they need to have the political will to fight. The ambassador shared with us some of her own family members who are civilians, not members of the Afghan forces. They have been fighting the Taliban in the north. She became emotional talking about her family's own death toll in war.
I'm not for war. I grew up in war. I lost my relatives. I don't want it. I think for every Afghan it's difficult because we don't advocate for war, but there is a time we need to defend our country and ourselves.
The State Department today said again what the president has been saying, that there is not a military solution to Afghanistan, only a political one through negotiation with the Taliban. The ambassador responded to that, telling us we cannot put all of our eggs in one basket as the Taliban is not negotiating and now does not have incentive to do so. Joe?
Allison, it's great reporting and wonderful insight from the ambassador. We appreciate the update live tonight from D.C. Thank you, Allison. We spoke about two crises tonight without mentioning COVID, so we'll get to that next. Questions about how effective the vaccines are. Will we need a booster shot eventually? And should pregnant women get the shot? Lots of questions. We'll get answers from Dr. Bob Lahita. Plus, gas prices on average up $1 a gallon compared to a year ago. President Biden asking foreign countries, many of whom don't like us, to help. That's ahead. COVID-19 is exploding in the southern part of the country. Louisiana, Florida, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Alabama have become a hotbed for the virus. Not surprisingly, those states are among the least vaccinated. Florida leads them all, still has just 50% of its population fully vaccinated. The state also leads the country in the number of people hospitalized with COVID-19, the rate of children hospitalized with COVID-19, and daily deaths from the virus. NewsNation's Brian Enton live for us tonight in Hollywood, Florida. So, Brian, more kids are now getting seriously sick. What's going on?
Well, Joe, the headlines on this can be a little bit confusing, so this is sort of how you have to think about it. Less than 2% of kids who get COVID end up in the hospital. That statistic has not changed since the pandemic began. Even here in Florida, it has stayed the same. The difference now is the Delta variant. It's more transmissible, more people overall are getting COVID, and that means more children overall in the numbers are now getting COVID. We're outside Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital. This is Hollywood, Florida, one of the big children's hospitals down here in South Florida. And I want to show you this. This is the kids' ER right here. And you can see they've got a tent set up outside. This has not always been there. They had to bring this in because so many kids have been showing up here with COVID symptoms. They have to keep them isolated outside in the tent to make sure they don't spread the virus inside the hospital. Just north of where we are in a different hospital, there's a 15-year-old who's been there, Paulina Velasquez. She's been in the hospital for a month. No pre-existing conditions, battling COVID. She was on a ventilator for more than a week. Her mom was worried she wouldn't make it. She's now finally turned the corner. She's doing much better, and we were able to hear from her today.
I'm feeling much better. Just happy that I'm not under that ventilator anymore.
It was very scary. I didn't know what to expect, whether she's gonna open her eyes, she's gonna say something to me, she's gonna move.
You can just imagine what that family has been through. Paulina, she was not vaccinated. She was eligible because she's 15. She said she was scared of the vaccine. Now she says she definitely plans to get it. Joe?
Brian Hinton, live for us tonight in Hollywood, Florida. Brian, good to see you. Thank you. For more on this now, we want to bring in Dr. Bob Lahita. Always great to have you with us, Dr. Bob, because we always have a lot of questions for you. Let's pick up where Brian left off there. You heard, I'm sure, what he had to say. What do we need to know about COVID and kids and the impact of this new Delta variant?
Well, the first thing to say, Joe, is thank God for the resilience of children. Most kids, as he said, will not have severe disease from the Delta variant or the Alpha variant or any of the variants. Kids do not get seriously affected, with exceptions. There are always children out there who are going to be infected based on their immunogenetics, based on the fact that they are vulnerable, and we simply don't know how vulnerable until they get sick. Now, the kicker here is that those children are not vaccinated. And of course, we can't vaccinate kids below the age of 12, Joe.
Right. So speaking of that, how do we know now we have this new news about COVID vaccines during pregnancy, which the CDC is now recommending? You can understand, doctor, even though people are vaccination fans and supporters, this one might give them a little hesitancy.
Every pregnant woman should get vaccinated. Everyone, because a pregnant woman who gets COVID, and particularly the Delta variant, is at great risk of having a big problem with her pregnancy. And that means perhaps even losing the baby. So this is really vital information. Pregnant women are significantly at risk. And if you're intending to get pregnant, by all means, please get the vaccine.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of pregnant women out there who are wanting to get an answer from you just like that. So we appreciate it. Let's move on to boosters, doctor. It looks like the immunocompromised will get them first, but it seems and sounds an awful lot like we're all going to have to get these at some point.
Well, Joe, this is based on Pfizer's work in Israel. In Israel, they found that the vaccine was 93% effective against severe illness and hospitalization. But then with the Delta variant, they found that the efficacy went down to about 64% for breakthrough infections. And some people wound up in the hospital, and in fact, some people died. And again, a lot of that goes back to the genetics of the individual, the immunogenetics, as we call it. So yeah, the booster shots are going to be important for those people over 65, those with heart disease, people who are tremendously obese, those with diabetes, those with COPD, asthma, bad asthma. These are comorbidities, which even with the Alpha variant caused a lot of deaths. So everybody in those categories with comorbidities are definitely going to have to get a booster. And what we're saying now is over 65 in general, and young people who have risky diseases like cancer, chemotherapy, and those with autoimmune diseases will certainly have to get the booster, Joe.
Doctor, you and I are on the vaccine train, and we're big cheerleaders. And I know every time you and I talk, we do bring that up. I'm curious, though, where we are right now and where there was so much hope a few months ago when these vaccines came out and where we stand now. Do you think this thing's going to be with us for a long time, if not forever?
Oh, Joe, I've always said that this is going to be with us forever. This coronavirus is in the atmosphere, as it were, around the world, because look at all the countries that have such low vaccination rates, like Africa, Indonesia, even Australia, less than 5%. So there's been testing these vaccines, and one dose against the Delta virus, the Delta variant, is not great. It's 30.7%. Remember, the flu vaccine is only 40%. But if you get 2 doses, you're protected from the Delta variant by 88%. So the vaccine is the way to go. And this pandemic right now is the pandemic of the unvaccinated. Those are the people who wind up in our ICUs.
Yeah, and dead. Dr. Bob Lahita, it's, again, always great to have your voice, and we appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks, Joe.
We have some breaking news. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett has denied a petition basically keeping in place Indiana University's vaccine mandate. Jim BOPP Jr., the lead attorney for the plaintiffs and the director of litigation for America's Frontline Doctors, joins us now. Jim, we were lucky enough to have you after your first defeat on this. You were very confident and told us at that time you were going to the Supreme Court, and you did, but it didn't turn out your way. What's your reaction?
Well, it's very difficult to get an emergency injunction from the U.S. Supreme Court. They think they grant about one a year. I've actually got them in previous appeals that I have made to the court. So I know, when and how difficult it is to get it. The point is that the fight continues. We have an appeal of our denial of our preliminary injunction. We'll be filing our brief on August the 30th.
Who do you appeal that with, Jim?
Well, they denied a preliminary injunction, and it's perfectly obvious, that this is going to continue forever. In other words, there are, we continue to be victimized by these different variants that come along and cause various problems among our citizens. We certainly see that the governments throughout the United States have no intention of giving up the power that they have by
But didn't this ruling say they can, Jim? I mean, essentially, this is a big ruling because it's the first big test, really, of vaccine mandates.
Well, I mean, I was trying to explain you misunderstand the procedure that we were involved in. It was an emergency. It was a request for an emergency injunction. You heard what I said. They grant about one of these a year and probably have 500, 600, 700 of these requests made a year. So this is not the appeal. This is something that supports the appeal.
Okay.
And it's very unusual. Okay.
All right. Hey.
We are back on normal track of an appeal. And, eventually the Supreme Court has got to decide whether or not the government has plenary authority to mandate vaccinations without having to prove that those vaccinations are necessary and justified. That's the issue.
Jim.
And I think they have to prove it.
Right. We're out of time. Quickly, will these students go to Indiana and get the vaccine, or will they go elsewhere?
There's 8 students. They're each making their own decisions, and each of those are going to be different. Some are going to defer going to IU because their health is threatened by getting the vaccination.
All right.
Others will go under the conditions, the restrictions, and in our view, punishments that are imposed by getting certain exceptions.
All right, Jim, we're up against the clock. I know you jumped in late for us, and we appreciate you contacting us. Thank you. It's good to talk to you. Jim BOPP, the lead attorney for the plaintiffs in this case. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for having me on.
Pain at the pump. Did it have to be this way? We'll get into the policies that have led to a sharp rise in what we pay to fill our tanks. And those Texas Democrats who fled the state to avoid a vote are back in the news. We'll talk with one of them about the arrest warrant that's been issued for him. Gas prices still surging as families look to take their final road trips of the summer. The national average currently sitting at $3.18 for regular unleaded, up 46.5% from last year. Now the White House is hoping OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, will lend a hand by boosting production. Interesting ask, considering our shaky relationship with several OPEC members. Joining me now, Christian Whiten, former State Department senior advisor for the Trump and Bush administrations. Christian, a lot of these countries don't like us necessarily. I guess it doesn't hurt to ask, but does OPEC typically listen?
Well, yes and no. Actually, I mean, some of these are nominally friends or allies even. Saudi Arabia historically is the biggest kahuna in OPEC. Interesting thing happened at OPEC Plus, which is the sort of Middle East OPEC, but expanded to include Russia a little bit, this month, where UAE basically stepped out of Saudi Arabia's shadow and says, we want to produce more. Actually, we want to have this funding come in to help with our oil transition. That was the UAE. Anyway, the Biden administration administration was largely silent when that happened, when their influence may have paid off and even helped increase production beyond where it was, but they were quiet. Now, for Biden to be sort of begging OPEC at the wrong time to increase production, incidentally, this comes on the heels of moves to crimp production in the United States, killing Keystone Pipeline, saying we're not going to look for oil on, on public lands, and setting this atmosphere that implies that we're going to move away from oil much faster than we actually are.
How much do you think it is policy and how much of it is it demand, Christian? I mean, one of the first things that President Biden did was cancel the Keystone Pipeline. Was that a factor here?
It is. If you look at U.S. production, it's still way, way below where it was at its peak before the pandemic. You'll recall that U.S. production really increased dramatically, especially during the Trump administration, partly due to the fracking revolution, partly due to just an atmosphere in Washington. There's something else going on here, which is when the dollar is weak, when we are printing dollars as fast as we can, like a banana republic, whether it's buying bonds, buying government bonds and mortgage securities, or buying debt, as we spend much more than we take in, and that's going to increase this year. The dollar just it performs poorly against other major currencies, and whenever that happens, when you devalue the currency in which oil is traded around the world, whether or not it comes to the United States, oil prices go up. So part of this is Washington policy on the monetary side and also the environmental side.
Christian White, and he's a voice on foreign policy for us. We were hoping to get to Afghanistan, but we're out of time. We'll hit you on that next time because, again, that is a situation that's certainly unfolding. Christian, thanks again for the time.
Thank you, Joe.
Voter suppression anywhere is a threat to democracy everywhere.
That was Texas State Senator Carol Alvarado at the end of her 15-hour filibuster in opposition to the GOP-backed elections bill. That bill ended up passing in the Senate this morning, so it's not clear where that bill will go from here because, well, on the House side, a lot of the Democrats are gone. That same bill that the Texas House Democrats fled the state to break quorum during the first special session, leading to a warrant for the arrest of all 52 of them. One of them has joined us before, and he's back with us again tonight as we follow him on this journey, Texas State Representative Alex Dominguez. The fugitive, I guess we should call you tonight. Are you allowed to tell us where you are? Are you in D.C. there? Is that a live picture?
I think if I did that, I would be breaking the normal fugitive protocols.
Okay. So, yeah, because, I mean, if you were back in Texas, they could literally, I guess, come to your house and a state trooper or DPS could and drag you to the Capitol. Could they not?
Actually, my understanding is earlier this afternoon, DPS troopers have been going to the homes and offices of different members that have the warrants, and they've been knocking on those doors and trying to see if any of our representatives are at their home or their place of work so that they can bring them in.
So a judge has weighed in on this, Representative, and I understand in favor of you and your colleagues, but I think there have been some other lawsuits. Where does it stand right now as to whether they can arrest you for this?
So the way that I look at it is one of the Harris County District Courts, which has statewide jurisdiction, they issued a writ of habeas corpus so that anytime any representative is apprehended by law enforcement, whether that's a sergeant at arms or a DPS trooper, they are required upon presentation of the writ to bring that representative to the Harris County District Court and present them before that judge so that that judge can determine if the member should be handed over to the trooper or the law enforcement officer, or should we remain free? Now, since then, I believe the Attorney General Ken Paxton has weighed in to try to mandamus this action to state that it is an invalid enforcement by the courts to stymie the power of the Speaker of the House and or the governor. And that's for the courts to decide, and I believe that we are still fighting that battle.
All right, so we mentioned the Senate. The Texas Senate has passed this bill. The reason you guys are in D.C. or wherever you are, what happens to it next? Are there not the votes? Is there not the quorum to vote on it in the House, and that's why you're gone?
Much like we did in special session number 1, if the House is not present to make the quorum, then no bill can go forward either to a committee referral, so it will not be heard there, and it certainly will not be debated or discussed or voted on the House floor. So as long as we stay away, we can keep this bill at bay.
Several of your colleagues have talked with us as well, Representative, and I believe you at one point did too concede that this thing was probably going to pass. We had a point now, to be honest with you, I'd sort of lost track. I wasn't sure if you were still there or not when we contacted you on this. Are you at a point where you've made your point here now and it's time to go back to work?
Like many of my colleagues, I believe that what we tried to do back in July and the beginning part of August, which was to stop the bill back in special session number 1, was to be able to lobby our federal lawmakers, both in the U.S. Senate and the Congress, to try to pass meaningful voting rights legislation.
And now they're on
We
their
see that
August
Speaker
recess.
Schumer- That's correct, but we received some promising news that the House of Representatives has decided to cut their break short. They will be returning on August 23rd to take up the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, H.R. 4. That's a tremendous victory because that was not on their schedule prior. And I believe they're doing that specifically because Texas Democrats have been putting up this fight, and they know it's only a matter of time before we are unable to sustain our quorum break, either because of financial reasons or emotional reasons. Don't forget, we have been away from our families, our loved ones, and school's about to start in Texas. It's a critical time for us to be back in the state. We're not used to being away this long.
All right, Texas State Representative Alex Dominguez, again, we always appreciate you coming on and answering our questions. Thank you.
Anytime.
The real-life Field of Dreams game is tonight in Iowa between the Yankees and White Sox. Baseball finally doing something right for a game that doesn't seem the same as it used to. What's wrong with baseball? Some thoughts ahead.
This field, this game, is a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again. Oh, people will come, Ray. People will most definitely come.
Boy, and they will tonight. That gives you the goosebumps, doesn't it? Of course, a clip from Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones. The real-life Field of Dreams comes to life tonight. Baseball's trying to get something right, but the unfortunate fact is there's a lot wrong with the national pastime. Tonight, for the first time, there will be an MLB game played in Iowa in the middle of a cornfield. White Sox, Yankees. The venue will only seat 8,000, the least expensive ticket, more than $1,000, the top end going for about $4,000. I love baseball, I'm a big fan, but I'll admit, I don't have time to sit and watch a 3-hour-plus game on TV. It's why I don't play a lot of golf anymore either. I just don't have 5 hours. Baseball can be hard to watch. The games are slow. The season's long. The start times are often late, especially on the East Coast. And how does baseball grow its fan base in a social media world? Our producers bought 4 tickets to the Cubs game last Sunday, an afternoon game at Wrigley, paid $200 a seat. And then Major League Baseball flexed the game to Sunday night, prime time. No longer worked for our crew, so they had to sell the tickets at a loss. I'll definitely be tuning in tonight, at least for a bit. We're all fans in some way, but baseball has a lot to consider when it comes to getting our attention and keeping it.